Imagine this for a second. For 50 years, women stood on every stage, every classroom, every courtroom, every social media platform, and screamed at the top of their lungs that men were the problem, that masculinity itself was toxic, that men were not needed, not wanted, and certainly not worthy of respect unless they completely surrendered their identity and became whatever version of a man women decided was acceptable that week. They told men to sit down, shut up, cross their legs, lower their voices, pay for everything, apologize for existing, and never ever complain. And you know what happened next? Men actually listened. They packed up their emotions, their ambitions, their desire to build families, and they quietly walked away. Now, every single day, another woman wakes up to the reality that the protectors are gone, the providers are gone, the simps are gone, the boyfriends are gone, the husbands are gone, and the silence is deafening. If you stay until the very end of this video, I am going to show you exactly why those men are never coming back, how they are living better than ever before, and why the panic you are seeing online is only the beginning of something much, much bigger. If you are enjoying the raw truth that only the angry guy brings to the table, smash that like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who needs to hear it, and subscribe with notifications on because we drop new fire every single week. While you are down there, check out the link in the description to Angry's Crypto Academy, where I personally teach you step by step how to buy, sell, trade, and most importantly, protect your assets in this wild crypto market so you never have to rely on anyone else to secure your future. The full academy is linked below. Go grab your spot before the next bull run leaves you behind. And if these videos are waking you up or keeping you fired up, you can always buy me a Red Bull. Through the link in the description, every can keeps the rage fueled and the truth flowing. Let me take you back to where it all started, because this did not happen overnight. This was decades in the making. Picture the 1970s. Feminism was sold as equality, but very quickly it morphed into something far darker. Women were told they did not need men for anything, that they could have it all: career, independence, children whenever they felt like it, and that any man who dared question that narrative was a misogynist who deserved to be canceled before cancel culture even had a name. Fast forward through the 1980s and 1990s, and the messaging only got louder. Men were portrayed as bumbling idiots in every sitcom, as deadbeats in every courtroom drama, as predators in every campus orientation. By the time we hit the 2000s, the legal system had been completely weaponized. Family courts became wealth extraction machines, where a man could lose his children, his home, his income, and his freedom just because his wife woke up one day and decided she was bored. No evidence required, just her word against his. And the judge almost always sided with the woman because that is what society demanded. Then the 2010s arrived, and the internet gave every woman a megaphone. Suddenly you had hashtags like "kill all men" trending, while the same platforms banned anyone who pointed out the obvious hypocrisy. You had the Me Too movement that started with legitimate complaints, but quickly devolved into a modern day witch hunt where a man could lose his entire career because a woman said he made her feel uncomfortable 15 years ago, with zero evidence and zero due process. You had articles upon articles telling men that the way they sat on a train was now called manspreading, and that it was violence against women. Violence for sitting with their legs apart, because that is how male bodies are literally designed. You had female teachers openly discriminating against boys in classrooms, telling little boys that their energy was toxic, drugging them with chemicals to make them behave more like little girls, and then wondering why those same boys grew up to hate the system that hated them first. Everywhere a man looked, he was told he was wrong simply for being born male. If he approached a woman at the gym and said hello, he was creeping. If he held a door open, he was being patriarchal. If he offered to pay for dinner, he was trying to control her. If he expected intimacy after spending hundreds of dollars on dates, he was entitled. If he walked away and refused to play the game, he was an incel. There was literally no winning. The rules changed every day, and the goalposts moved every hour. The only consistent message men received for 50 straight years was that their natural instincts, their strength, their protective nature, their desire to provide, their sexuality, their very existence was offensive and needed to be erased, or at the very least heavily policed and punished. So men did the one thing nobody expected them to do. They obeyed. They took every word women said at face value. When women said, "We do not need you," men said, "Okay," and stopped offering help. When women said, "Do not talk to me," men stopped approaching. When women said, "Pay for everything, but expect nothing in return," men stopped dating altogether. When women said, "We can do everything you can do, but better and without you," men stepped aside and said, "Be our guest." And now, here we are in 2025, and the consequences are rolling in like a tidal wave that nobody can outrun. Open TikTok on any given day and tell me what you see. You see video after video of women in their late 20s, 30s, and even 40s staring into their ring lights with that 1,000-yard stare, asking the same question: where have all the good men gone? You see them complaining that dating apps are wastelands, that nobody asks them out in real life anymore, that men just want to stay home and play video games, that nobody wants to commit, that nobody wants to pay for dates, that nobody wants to be providers anymore. And the best part, these are the exact same women who spent the last decade bragging about being independent, about not needing a man, about how they make their own money and pay their own bills. They celebrated when men started walking away because they thought it meant they had won. They thought men were bluffing. They thought men were too weak, too desperate, too hooked on female validation to actually follow through. They were wrong. Men did not just walk away from dating, they walked away from the entire script society handed them. They stopped believing that their value came from how much money they spent on a woman. They stopped believing that their purpose was to protect people who openly hated them. They stopped believing that marriage was anything other than a legalized wealth transfer with a 50% failure rate and 80% of divorces initiated by women. They looked at the data. They listened to the horror stories from their fathers, their brothers, their friends who got destroyed in family court, and they made a rational decision. The risk is not worth the reward. And here's the part that keeps these women up at night. The men who walked away are not sitting at home crying into their pillows. They are thriving. They kept their money. They kept their peace. They kept their freedom. They bought houses in cash or with tiny mortgages because they never had to finance a wedding or pay alimony. They travel whenever they want because they do not have to check in with anyone. They eat steak whenever they feel like it because they are not sending half their paycheck to an ex-wife who hates them. They go to the gym, they build businesses, they ride motorcycles, they play video games for 12 hours straight if that is what brings them joy. And nobody is there to tell them they are immature or selfish or toxic. They discovered something women never thought they would. Solitude is not the same as loneliness. A man can be completely alone and completely at peace because he finally learned to enjoy his own company. He no longer measures his worth by how many women want him or how much attention he gets on social media. He measures his worth by how calm his life is, how much money is in his accounts, how much weight he can lift, how many countries he has visited, how many skills he has mastered. For the first time in his life, he is free. Meanwhile, women are waking up to inflation that never seems to end. Rent that doubles every few years. Groceries that cost twice what they did 5 years ago. Dating apps filled with men who refuse to spend a single dollar on a first date. Men who will sleep with them but will not commit because why would they commit to someone who brings chaos and demands everything while offering nothing stable in return? Women who spent their prime years chasing careers and casual relationships and Instagram likes are now staring at 35, 40, 45 years old with no husband, no children, no safety net, and a biological clock that does not care about their feelings or their follower count. And the panic is delicious. You can hear it in their voices when they make those TikToks. The quiver, the desperation disguised as anger. Where are all the real men? Why won't anyone commit? Why is dating so hard? Why am I still single? And the answer is staring right back at them in the mirror, but they will never admit it. They spent decades telling men exactly what they wanted, nothing to do with us. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. And now that they got exactly what they asked for, they are shocked that men are not lining up to save them from the consequences of their own ideology. I want you to think about something deeper for a moment. Men have always been the ones who built civilization. We are the ones who went to war, who worked the dangerous jobs, who died younger, who paid the majority of taxes, who invented almost everything, who kept the lights on and the streets safe. And for doing all of that, what did we get? We got told we were the root of all evil. We got told our sacrifices were expected and our complaints were whining. We got told to man up and shut up every time we asked for even the smallest amount of respect or reciprocity. So when men finally said enough and walked away, they did not just walk away from women, they walked away from the entire social contract that said their only purpose was to serve and protect people who hated them. And now that the shield is gone, now that the buffer between women and harsh reality has been removed, women are experiencing something they have never experienced before in their entire lives: accountability. For the first time, nobody is coming to save them. No white knight, no simp, no beta provider, no captain save a hoe. The government checks are getting smaller because the men who used to pay the majority of the taxes are no longer earning as much because they no longer have families to support. The trades are filled with men who make six figures working with their hands and have zero interest in marriage. The tech bros, the crypto millionaires, the entrepreneurs, the digital nomads, they are all opting out. They are keeping their money, their time, their energy, their seed, everything. And the women who spent years bragging about being the table are now realizing that an empty table with no chairs is just a lonely piece of furniture. They told men to go away, and men went. Not in anger, not with a dramatic speech or a viral video, just quietly, calmly, permanently. One day, the average guy was still liking her Instagram stories, paying for her cocktails, listening to her complain about her boss for 3 hours straight. And the next day, he simply stopped responding. No fight, no breakup text, no closure. He just vanished into his own life. And the silence that followed was so complete that it finally started to terrify the very women who demanded it in the first place. Let us talk about what that silence actually sounds like on the female side of the screen. It sounds like a 32-year-old marketing manager in a major city making 85,000 a year, staring at her bank account after rent, student loans, car payment, health insurance, and DoorDash every night because she is too exhausted to cook, realizing she has $400 left for the rest of the month and no one she can call to help. It sounds like a 38-year-old single mother who spent the last decade posting about how she does not need a man, discovering that the child support checks are getting smaller because her ex finally figured out how to structure his income through an LLC and live overseas 6 months out of the year. It sounds like a 29-year-old influencer with 300,000 followers who can get a brand deal for teeth whitener, but cannot get a single man to take her on a real date where he actually pays and actually listens and actually wants to see her again. These women open their phones and they scroll, and every video is another woman just like them asking the same question with increasing desperation: what happened to men? They make reaction videos to the red pill content they used to laugh at, except now they are not laughing. They stitch videos of guys talking about passport bro lifestyles in Thailand or Colombia, and they call those men losers, but you can hear the crack in their voice because deep down, they know those men are happier than they have ever been. They post memes about wanting a 6'5" guy with a six-figure salary and six-pack abs who will love her even though she has three kids from three different fathers and $60,000 in credit card debt. And the comment sections are graveyards because no one is even arguing anymore. The men just do not care enough to type a reply. The panic has levels now. There is the surface level panic where they complain about dating apps and ghosting and situationships. Then there is the mid level panic where they start admitting that maybe, just maybe, they were too harsh with the whole patriarchy thing and that men are actually kind of necessary for a functioning society. And then there is the deep level panic that most of them will never say out loud on camera, but you can see it in their eyes when the ring light is off. The realization that biology does not negotiate, that fertility has an expiration date, that no amount of feminism or corporate success or OnlyFans money can extend, that the same society that told them they could have it all lied to them, and now the bill has come due and there is no man around to pay it. And the craziest part is that men warned them for years, decades. We made entire channels, forums, books, podcasts, blog posts, comment sections, everything short of skywriting, telling women that if they kept treating men like disposable utilities while simultaneously telling them they were worthless oppressors, men would eventually leave. We were called bitter. We were called incels. We were called fragile. We were called every name in the book. But we were right. Every single time a man tried to point out the obvious double standards, the bias in family court, the blatant misandry in media and education, he was shouted down and told to check his privilege. So eventually, men stopped talking and started walking. Now, the same women who used to say, my body, my choice about everything from abortion to OnlyFans are suddenly demanding that men have a responsibility to date them, marry them, provide for them, protect them, even though they spent their entire adult lives saying they did not need any of that from men. They want the benefits of traditional masculinity without any of the obligations of traditional femininity. They want a man who earns six figures but never expects her to cook or clean or stay in shape. They want a man who is strong enough to protect her but gentle enough to never disagree with her. They want a man who will pay for everything but never ask for intimacy in return because that would make him entitled. They want everything and nothing at the same time. And the moment a man says no, he is the villain. That is why the men who walked away are never coming back. Because once a man sees the game for what it is, once he understands that female nature, unchecked by any real consequences, will always push for more while giving less. Once he experiences true peace, without the constant drama, criticism, and financial extraction, there is no going back. You cannot unsee it. It is like taking the red pill in the Matrix. The comfortable blue pill illusion is gone forever. Men who have tasted freedom do not crawl back into the cage just because the zookeeper starts crying that she is lonely. Look at what these men are doing instead. They are buying land in the countryside and building small cabins with solar panels and Starlink. They are moving to countries where women still smile when a man holds the door and where dating does not feel like a hostile negotiation. They are starting businesses that only require a laptop and an internet connection and living in places where their dollars stretch 10 times further. They are lifting weights, reading books, learning languages, riding motorcycles across continents, fishing in silence for days at a time, eating ribeyes cooked over open fires with other men who understand exactly why they left. They are building brotherhoods that have nothing to do with chasing women and everything to do with living well. And the women left behind are starting to figure out that all the empowerment talk in the world does not pay the electric bill. All the girl boss memes do not make the rent cheaper. All the independent woman anthems do not stop the loneliness from creeping in at 2 a.m. when the likes stop coming and the apartment is quiet and there is no one to talk to except the cat. The same women who used to brag about having a roster are now realizing that a roster of men who do not care if you live or die is not the flex they thought it was. There is a video going around right now of a woman crying on TikTok because she makes $120,000 a year and still cannot afford to live alone in a decent neighborhood. And she is begging someone, anyone, to explain how this is possible. And the top comment, with hundreds of thousands of likes from men, simply says, "You told us you didn't need us, so we stopped earning as much." That is it. That is the entire story in one sentence. Men downshifted. They stopped grinding 80-hour weeks to impress women who said money does not matter. They stopped climbing corporate ladders that only existed to fund lifestyles they were never invited to enjoy. They stopped killing themselves in dangerous jobs to pay taxes that mostly go to single mothers and government programs that hate them. They said, fine, you do not need us. We will work just enough to take care of ourselves and nothing more. The result is an entire generation of men who are healthier, wealthier, happier, and freer than any generation of men in recorded history, and an entire generation of women who are discovering that independence is expensive when there is no one else picking up the tab. And it is only getting worse for them. Inflation is not going down. Birth rates are collapsing. Marriage rates are at all-time lows. Home ownership for single women is plummeting while single men are buying houses at record rates. The gender happiness gap has reversed for the first time ever. Young men are now reporting higher levels of happiness than young women. Every metric you look at tells the same story. The experiment failed. The great social experiment of telling half the population they were obsolete and the other half they could have everything without sacrifice has collapsed under its own weight. Women are starting to make bargaining videos now. You have probably seen them. The ones where they say, okay, fine, I will cook, I will clean, I will stay in shape, I will have your children, just please come back. They are offering to go 50-50 on dates. Some are even saying they will sign prenups. They are promising to delete the secret second phone with the roster. They are doing everything short of getting on their knees and apologizing for 50 years of collective cruelty. And men are watching these videos the same way you watch a nature documentary about an animal that is going extinct because it refused to adapt, with mild curiosity and zero emotional investment. Because here is the cold truth they still do not understand. Men do not owe them a return. Men do not owe society a return. Men do not owe women anything just because women suddenly decided the consequences hurt. The contract was broken a long time ago, and men have built new lives on the other side of that broken contract. Those new lives are peaceful, they are abundant, they are joyful, and most importantly, they are ours. So when you see another woman online asking why men are not approaching anymore, why men are not paying anymore, why men are not committing anymore, just remember we did exactly what you told us to do. We left you alone. We went our own way. And now that you are feeling the chill of the world without our warmth, do not be surprised when we do not come running back just because you finally noticed the fire went out. The walkaway movement is not a phase. It is not a trend. It is not something that will reverse when the economy gets better or when women start being nicer. It is the single largest shift in male behavior in human history, and it is permanent. Men have discovered that life is better when the only person they have to please is themselves. They have discovered that peace is worth more than passion, that freedom is worth more than family in its current form, that keeping their money and their sanity is worth more than any amount of female approval. And no amount of crying on TikTok is going to change that. The most fascinating part of this entire shift is how quietly it happened. There was no march in the streets. There was no manifesto signed by millions of men. There was no national day of walking away. It was millions of individual men in millions of private moments making the same decision at roughly the same time. One guy closed his dating apps after the third woman in a row asked him to Venmo her $50 for getting ready costs before a first date that never even happened. Another guy sat in a courthouse watching his entire life savings get handed over to a woman who cheated on him for 3 years and decided right then and there that he would never sign another marriage certificate. Another guy spent 6 months getting called a creep at the gym for accidentally making eye contact while a woman filmed herself doing hip thrusts in front of the dumbbell rack, and he simply canceled his membership and built a garage gym instead. Another guy watched his best friend lose custody of his kids because his ex convinced the judge he was emotionally abusive for wanting the kids to eat vegetables, and that was the last straw. These were not coordinated events. These were organic, rational responses to an environment that had become openly hostile. And because the decision was made one man at a time, in the silence of his own mind, women never saw it coming. They were too busy celebrating their independence and posting memes about how men were trash to notice that the men had stopped arguing, stopped begging, stopped pursuing, stopped caring. The silence was mistaken for surrender when it was actually victory. Now, years later, the absence is impossible to ignore. Bars that used to be packed with men buying rounds for women are half empty on Friday nights. Restaurants that relied on first date traffic are closing locations. Jewelry stores are laying off staff because engagement ring sales have collapsed. Wedding venues are offering 70% discounts just to fill weekends that used to be booked 3 years in advance. Entire industries that were quietly propped up by male disposable income directed toward female approval are shrinking faster than anyone wants to admit. And the women who spent the last 15 years laughing at men for playing video games are now realizing that those same men are perfectly content to keep playing video games instead of funding their lifestyles. The guy who used to blow 2 grand a month trying to impress women on dates now spends $200 a month on a Steam Deck and a gym membership and has never been happier. The guy who used to lease a BMW to look successful on Instagram now drives a 15-year-old Toyota truck with 300,000 miles and sleeps like a baby because there is no car payment and no woman telling him the truck is embarrassing. The guy who used to work 70 hours a week to afford a house big enough for a future family now works 35 hours remotely, lives in a 600 square foot cabin he paid cash for, and has more money in his brokerage account at 32 than his father had at 60. That is the luxury of minimalism. Men do not need much to be happy. Give a man a grill, a fishing rod, a reliable Wi Fi connection, a pull up bar, and a couple of good friends, and he is set for life. Women spent decades telling men that peace and quiet were boring, that a real man wants the excitement of a passionate relationship, the drama of a fiery woman, the challenge of keeping her happy. And men tried. Lord knows we tried. We read the books. We went to therapy. We learned her love language. We planned the elaborate dates. We put her feelings above our own for years and years and years. And what did we get in return? Accusations, criticism, ultimatums, divorce papers, therapy bills, paternity tests that came back negative after 18 years of raising another man's child. So when the last straw finally broke, men did not replace one chaos with another. They replaced chaos with simplicity. They moved the chaos out of their lives the same way you move an old couch to the curb. No ceremony, no dramatic speech, just gone. And now women are discovering that the word independent has a price tag most of them cannot actually afford when the male subsidies disappear. A woman making $70,000 a year in a high cost of living city is broke after taxes, rent, insurance, student loans, and the lifestyle she was told she deserved. A man making $70,000 a year in the same city is rich because he has no children, no alimony, no child support, no wedding to pay for, no girlfriend demanding luxury handbags, no wife insisting they need a bigger house in a better school district. He eats ground beef and rice for dinner and still saves half his income. He is winning. The financial gap between single men and single women has never been wider, and it is growing every single day. Single men under 40 are now the fastest growing group of home buyers in many countries. Single women are being priced out of home ownership at record rates. Single men have higher net worth on average than single women in almost every age bracket for the first time in modern history. And the reason is brutally simple. Men stopped spending money on women and started keeping it for themselves. Women are responding in predictable stages of grief. First came denial. This is just a phase. Men will get tired of being alone. They will come crawling back when they want children. Then came anger. How dare these men abandon their responsibilities? Someone needs to make them pay. We need new laws. Then came bargaining. Okay, we will lower our standards. We will split the bill. We will learn to cook. Just please date us again. And very soon, we are going to see depression on a scale that will shock the world as millions of women in their late 30s and 40s realize that the future they were promised never existed, and the men they mocked for wanting traditional families were actually offering them the best deal they were ever going to get. Some women are already there. You can find their videos if you look hard enough, the ones they post at 3 a.m. when the makeup is off, the filter is gone, and the tears are real. They admit they were wrong. They admit they listened to the wrong people. They admit they spent their youth chasing the wrong things. They beg for forgiveness they know they do not deserve. And the men watching those videos feel nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just indifference. Because forgiveness would require caring, and caring is what got us in trouble in the first place. That indifference is the final stage. It is not hatred. Hatred still gives the other person power over your emotions. Indifference is true freedom. When a man reaches the point where he genuinely does not care whether a woman lives, dies, thrives, or suffers, that is when he knows he has fully walked away. And millions of men are there now. They scroll past the crying videos the same way they scroll past ads for kitchen appliances. They do not cheer her pain. They do not wish her harm. They simply do not care. She no longer occupies mental space. She is background noise. And that lack of caring is what terrifies women more than anything else. Because for decades, female power in the sexual marketplace was built on one foundation: the belief that men would always care more, that men would always chase, that men would always sacrifice, that men could be controlled through access and attention. And now that foundation is gone. The power dynamic has flipped, not because men took power, but because men stopped playing the game entirely. Women are now learning what men have always known: rejection hurts, being ignored hurts worse, and being irrelevant is the deepest cut of all. Every day, another influencer who built her brand on "I don't need no man" energy quietly deletes her old videos because the brand deals are drying up and the comments are brutal. Every day, another dating coach who made millions teaching women how to manipulate high value men pivots to teaching women how to attract a provider because the old advice stopped working. Every day, another article gets written with a title like "The Male Loneliness Epidemic" that completely misses the point. These men are not lonely, they are peaceful, and they will fight to the death to protect that peace. The walkaway movement is not about hating women. It is about loving ourselves enough to stop accepting abuse. It is about refusing to participate in a system that punishes masculinity while rewarding manipulation. It is about recognizing that peace is the ultimate luxury and guarding it with our lives. And the beautiful part is that it is self reinforcing. The longer men stay gone, the better their lives get. The better their lives get, the less incentive they have to return. The less they return, the more desperate women become. The more desperate women become, the more obvious the original mistake becomes. And round it goes until the entire paradigm collapses under its own contradictions. We are watching the end of an era in real time. The era where men were expected to sacrifice everything for people who offered nothing but criticism in returns over. The era where female happiness was treated as the only metric that mattered is over. The era where men were told their value came from how useful they were to women is dead and buried. A new era has begun. An era where men define their own worth. An era where peace is valued above passion. An era where brotherhood replaces chasing women. An era where a man's default answer to any demand on his time, money, or commitment is no, unless he sees overwhelming evidence that the answer should be yes. And no amount of tears, no amount of bargaining, no amount of shaming language is going to drag men back into the plantation. The chains are broken, the guards are gone, the prisoners have walked out into the sunlight, and they are never, ever going back inside. So when you see another woman online asking where all the good men went, you already know the answer. They went where they were treated with respect. They went where their efforts were appreciated. They went where their peace was protected. They went inside themselves and built lives so complete that no woman can add enough value to justify the cost of entry. They went their own way. And they are happier than they have ever been. The most common question I get in the comments, in my DMs, and even from some of the older guys who still don't fully believe this is real, is this: angry, what happens next? Society can't just run without men participating, right? Eventually, things will get so bad that men will have to step back in and fix everything like we always have. And my answer is always the same: no, we don't, not this time. Not ever again under the old rules. Let me paint the next 10 years for you so clearly that you can almost taste the freedom on the other side. By 2030, the average age of a first time bride in most Western countries will be pushing 40. Birth rates will be so low that governments will start offering six-figure bonuses for any woman who has a third child. And almost no one will take the deal because the math still doesn't work when there is no stable man in the picture. Schools will start closing by the hundreds because there aren't enough children to fill them. Pension systems will begin cracking because there aren't enough young workers paying into the system to support the retiring population. Entire suburbs built in the 1990s and 2000s for young families will turn into ghost towns filled with empty McMansions owned by divorced women who can't sell them and can't afford the property taxes. Meanwhile, the men who walked away will be scattered across the planet, living lives that look like early retirement to everyone else. You'll have compounds in Texas, Montana, Idaho, and the Carolinas where groups of 10 or 15 guys bought a few hundred acres together, built small houses, put in a gym, a range, a shop, high speed internet, and basically created the modern version of a monastery, except instead of praying all day, they lift, shoot, grill, and trade crypto. You'll have digital nomad hubs in Thailand, Bali, Colombia, and Portugal, where a 29-year-old software developer or options trader lives in a villa with ocean views for less than the cost of a studio apartment in a failing American city, dates locally if he wants, or doesn't date at all because the peace is that good. You'll have you'll have small towns in the Midwest and the South that quietly become male enclaves because the women moved to the cities chasing careers and the men stayed, bought the cheap houses, fixed them up, started small businesses, and turned dying main streets into places where men can actually live well on 50,000 a year. You'll have an entire generation of tradesmen, electricians, plumbers, welders, mechanics who never got married, never had kids, and are now sitting on seven-figure net worths because they worked hard, spent little, and invested the rest while living in paid-off houses and driving paid-off trucks. And the women who spent the 2000s, 10s, and early 2000s, 20s calling these men low value will be making TikToks from their one-bedroom apartments, wondering why the plumber charges $400 just to show up, why the electrician needs a 2-month waiting list, why the small town house she wants to buy for her fresh start is already under contract to a 27-year-old lineman who paid cash. By 2035, the phrase soft retirement will become common for men in their 30s. They'll work 20 hours a week remotely or seasonally in the trades or not at all if their investments are fat enough and spend the rest of their time hunting, fishing, lifting, traveling, reading, or just sitting on the porch watching the sunset with zero obligations to anyone but themselves. Their biggest daily decision will be ribeye or salmon, and their biggest expense will be plane tickets to go see their brothers in another state or another country. Women, on the other hand, will be facing the brutal reality that corporate jobs don't love them back. The layoffs will keep coming. The promotions will slow down once they hit 40, and the company realizes they have no husband or kids to go home to. So they're expected to work even harder for less money. The dating pool will be filled with men who either walked away completely or men who learned the new rules and now treat dating like a casual hobby instead of a life mission. The wall will no longer be a meme. It will be a daily lived experience for millions of women who thought their degrees and passports and energy would protect them from biology and economics. And the government will try everything. They'll float ideas of bachelor taxes. They'll run ad campaigns begging men to get married and have kids for the good of the country. They'll offer women debt forgiveness if they have children. They'll try to shame men back into the plantation with every propaganda tool they have. And it will all fail because you can't shame a man who no longer cares what society thinks of him. You can't tax a man who lives on cash businesses and crypto. You can't guilt a man who has already made peace with dying alone if that's what it takes to keep his freedom. The smartest women, the ones paying attention right now in 2025 and 2026, will start adapting. They'll delete the old feminist talking points, start learning how to cook real meals, hit the gym hard, dress feminine again, and approach men with genuine respect and an offer of real partnership instead of a list of demands. Some of them will succeed and lock down one of the few remaining men who are still open to traditional deals. Most will not because there simply aren't enough of those men left, and the competition will be brutal. But the majority of women will double down. They'll scream louder. They'll demand more laws. They'll blame men even harder for refusing to fix the problems women created. And every time they do, another wave of men will look at the chaos, shrug, and walk even further away. This is not revenge. This is cause and effect on a civilizational scale. Men didn't break society. We simply stopped holding it together after being told for 50 years that we were the ones breaking it. The shield is gone. The buffer is gone. The subsidy is gone. And now reality is doing what reality always does, it's collecting. So when people ask me if men will ever come back, my answer is simple. Only if the entire social contract is rewritten from the ground up with mutual respect, legal protection for men, and real consequences for bad behavior. And even then, most men will look at the offer, think about the peace they already have, and politely say, "No thanks, I'm good." Because once a man has lived without the drama, without the financial bleeding, without the constant criticism, without the threat of having his children weaponized against him, without the slow erosion of his identity and his dreams, going back feels like volunteering to return to prison after tasting freedom. And no man who has truly walked away will ever do that. The future belongs to the men who refuse to hand it over. The future belongs to the men who chose peace over performance. The future belongs to the men who looked at the burning plantation and kept walking until the smoke was just a memory on the horizon. And 10, 20, 30 years from now, when historians look back at this moment, they won't call it the end of men. They'll call it the greatest liberation in human history. Because for the first time ever, men are free. Truly, completely, gloriously free. What did you think about everything we just went through today? Do you see the panic happening in real time? Do you think men are justified in walking away? Or do you think there is still hope for society to course correct? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Like the video if you liked it. Do not forget to subscribe. And if this one hit home, share it with every man you know who needs to hear it. Just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers. Nothing, nothing, nothing.
nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.